Hey guys, Sylvan here. This video is going to be about the Azir vs Brand matchup. Brand is one of Azir's hardest lane matchups, and playing against him is quite often infuriating, just the way he plays and his abilities. I'm going to go through the matchup as soon as the game starts, but first I'm going to go through the team comps really quickly. So first off, we'll look at our team. We're going to have very strong poke with Ezreal and Azir, and we're going to have very strong pick potential with Thresh, Riven, and obviously Yasuo ult. We're going to have a very strong and hard engage throughout team fights, and our negatives are obviously going to be that we're very squishy, we don't have a tank, and we have lanes of skill matchup. So Azir vs Brand is a skill matchup, favouring Brand, and Riven vs Kled is obviously a skill matchup. Now when we look at their team, they've got a huge amount of poke as well, not as much as us, but still a lot. They've got really big AoE damage, they have really good zoning, and obviously like CC within that. But they can't really split against us unless they're way ahead, and they have 2 bruises, no tank. So the bruises are good, but not having a tank can be a negative. All in all, I'd give them the edge for the early game, and us the edge for the late game. Now as soon as this game starts, we realise they have a Thresh, that means hard CC, so we need to move straight to that middle bush right at the start to make sure we watch for any invades. If we stand in any of the other bushes, it's quite easy to grab us on an invade, and this one most people don't check at any time. Now the reason I say Brand has the advantage in this lane is because he can really easily hit us with his E. Azir has the lowest base movement speed in the game, which means Brand's E is going to be able to easily hit you. He just casts it on you and you won't be able to dodge it reactively in time. To avoid it, you need to pretend you're going to go for a minion, you fake it out, and then you dodge it preemptively. So here I'm going to click towards the minion, as you can see, and then I'm going to click to the side, he casts his E, and I dodge it easily. Now this obviously only works if you keep auto-attacking so that it looks like you're going for an auto. If you're only last hitting, they're not going to fall for it if you try and bait one out by just doing one random auto-attack at a random time. So you need to keep auto-attacking. There's 2 main ways to play this lane. The way I like to use, and the way I start to use in this game, is basically to slow push each wave so that the 3rd wave pushes hard on him. People value the Canyon minion more, and what they're going to do is they're going to use their spells basically to clear the wave before it gets to the tower, and you're free from harassment. Brand's main goal here is to harass you to the point where you're easy to game. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. We can see that working immediately here, as Brand is starting to now use his spells on the minion wave instead of us. So we're going to end up much better off because of this. Now we get to the second part of our lane versus Brand, which is harassing him due to the advantage we gained by expending his cooldowns and mana earlier. This is obviously the ideal time to ward as well, at 3 minutes to 3:15, because the jungler obviously starts at blue and will be that side. I obviously make the mistake of... Now you can see, the second he uses that cooldown, I'm now in my aggressive stance. I want to trade with him. And as soon as I grab 2 soldiers up to do more damage, I trade with him immediately. I come off way better in this trade, obviously because he can't return any of the damage. He takes an aggressive stance and goes for a trade here because there's no minions to block any of his spells. What you really need to do is just don't stand still. Fake out an auto-attacking, move back instead. You just really don't want to be hit by that E because that follow-up stun is going to get you killed every time. The correct play to make here was to flash and then W and Q because there's absolutely no way he'd be able to escape. He wouldn't use flash in that case, or maybe he would, but probably he wouldn't use flash in that case, just because he wouldn't live regardless, and then that way, you know, it's a one-sided trade for the flash, but it definitely would guarantee a kill. As punishment for not warding earlier, I face check a bush going for a ward, and end up wasting all of my abilities. Even though I do make a dumb mistake, I do burn the flash of both the jungler and the mid, and I make sure I call that in the chat. Now in a matchup against Brand, we want to get boots as soon as possible. We want to get those Sorc shoes as soon as possible. They're much better than MR at avoiding damage because you obviously take no damage. So here you can see it becomes much easier to dodge his E. It's not like 100%, but it is much easier. These next few trades, you can clearly see that when he does E and I'm attacking at the same time, I have 0% chance of avoiding them. With movement speed Quints and Sorc shoes, you actually can get out of them, and that's why I highly recommend getting them in this matchup. So it's only like a few inches where you actually miss those kind of abilities. Now here I decide to go in on him. I do have kill potential right now if I land everything. Unfortunately I do miss the QE, which means my damage is significantly lower than what it could be. He would have died if I'd landed all that right there. Now, when trading with Brand, the idea is not to get very close. He's a mid-range, obviously, damage dealer. And you want to use your range to your advantage until he burns his E. Then you can kill him. So I make the mistake here of obviously going in too early and he just ults me. I dodge the Q by just dashing to a minion. The quick dash means you can quickly dash things from short range, and then Graves just happens to be there, so I have to burn my ulti. With this mistake, I waste absolutely everything. I do live though, which is good, but I didn't have to waste all of that. My next back was a Sorc Shoes, so this is where I start being able to easily dodge Brand's E, even though I cocky run into the first one, pretty dumb. So what you're trying to do is avoid dying here. You've given up your early game power spikes to say, hey, I want to live and not give the enemy gold. This is another good way to get away where people don't 100% expect it, and that's to use soldiers that are already out to Q somewhere, then E to them. You don't get the same distance, but if your W's on cooldown, you can actually get away where somebody thinks you can't. I make the mistake of ulting here, and my Yasuo thinks I'm going in, which means he dies, but I do get out alive. Now, things may be looking a little bit grim for me right now because I'm obviously not getting a big advantage in mid, but what's happening right now is I'm playing to my advantage. I scale into the late game. He does like a little bit, but he doesn't scale to the same extent as Azir does. Me not dying means I'm going to have the advantage soon. Here's where the mind games begin. I've pushed him into the tower the whole game, and basically what happens is as soon as I leave the lane, he wants to push me into the tower, which is going to set me up for an easy gank if he wants to get some CS. So I easily put him straight into the tower. I take a huge amount of damage from the ulti, and I die because I don't pop barrier. Now, even though I went Sorc Shoes first, I'm going to have a huge amount of damage now just with the Stinger, and I got an ability tome that's going to be the highest amount of damage I could be with this gold. Also having the movement speed. So now we're going to start to see where I have a huge advantage on Brand just because of the amount of damage that I do. I start poking him down and get him ready for a game. We grab the kill, but we don't pay attention to the fact that Kled's missing, so he manages to pick up a kill on Yasuo. I get out, but unfortunately I have to use Flash. Now this is where the game gets a bit silly. Each team starts turning into like Clown Fiesta mode, where it's just very uncoordinated fights where we're fighting but we don't have enough mana to fight. And we don't have cooldowns and that kind of stuff. They make a very obvious dragon play, so I go over to try and steal it. And they're not really paying attention, so I do actually end up stealing it. Now I'm going to skip ahead quickly about 10 minutes just because the rest of the game has turned into a big Clown Fiesta. Where people are just going in randomly, like you can see here, where there's no follow-up. And it's just happening constantly for both teams. So there's not really anything we can learn from that. So here's where we try to make a more coordinated team fight. It's a 5v4, but we have the advantage as I've just put up the passive tower. I send my soldiers straight to the back line. They're not going for me, so there's absolutely no point in even trying to hit Kled unless he is on me. Because it's a normal, I go for the Penta, but obviously miss out. And this is where our team completely takes... Now, I'm not going to analyze the rest of the game. Their team completely crumbles, and we just consolidate the wind by just going for small objectives until we can just push in and they can't stop us. Their team didn't use the advantages that they had in the start, and as a result, they fell way behind. Hopefully this has given you more insight into the matchup with Brand. Basically, the whole idea is do not lose early and you will eventually win. So trying not to die is the best strategy against him. Let me know what you thought of my video. Just like, comment, subscribe, whatever. Whether you thought it was good or bad, and I'll see you next time. Shitty Vlad montage time! In 8 seconds time. Alright guys, am I going to kill Lee Sin in 8 seconds time? That's the game, am I going to get it?
You won't. I don't believe in you.
That wasn't 8 seconds.
That was wrong.
Bye.